Welcome to Flawless Purpose. Today I have such a special guest with me, Solimar Williams. She is the founder of Unbothered clothing line. She's an Afro-Latina born and raised in the Dominican Republic. She moved to New York when she was 17 in pursuit of her dreams of becoming a fashion designer. Years later, she moved to California, and that's when Unbothered was born. Welcome. How are you?
Hey, I'm so good. So excited to be here and be here with you.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I just can't wait to hear your journey. So take us on your journey from Dominican Republic to New York to California. I want to hear it all. Whose idea was it to come to New York and then move to California? And then just what inspired you to start Unbothered?
My mom and my dad lived in the States since I was like one. So I mostly grew up with my grandparents in the Dominican Republic, but it was always kind of the thing or the theme of my life that I was going to move to the States eventually. So that's how I ended up in New York. Long story short, I'm an island girl. So the cold and I are not friends, let alone the snow. So I actually moved to Florida for about 6 years and then met my husband, and that's when we decided to move to California a few years later. And the reason being is because fashion has always been my lifelong dream, the thing that I wanted to pursue, and I just didn't see it in Florida. And I didn't live in New York long enough to form those fashion connections. So then I felt that California was the next state that I needed to be in order to pursue that fashion dream. And since I was little, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be in fashion. I wanted to do fashion. I wanted to design clothes. And I used to do mood boards with a magazine that my grandpa would bring me every Saturday because he would get the newspaper every day. But then on Saturdays, they had this like magazine with a bunch of fashion designers and like up and coming Dominican designers. So I would like cut out the dresses and the accessories and put them together and like the articles and everything. Obviously, I didn't know it was a mood board at the time. I just was putting this little booklet together. And I even like drew and designed my quinceañera dress. And I've always been really passionate about fashion. I think once I got older, that became a little bit of a different meaning for me. I saw how toxic fashion has been. I saw how damaging fashion can be to the environment. I wanted to add my little grain of sand to the let's fix the problem, right? So making a little bit more sustainable brand, not so much focusing on consumerism, and also giving back through my brand and making a brand that's open to everybody and anybody who wants to wear it. Because I just felt that fashion should be more of a way of expression versus a club or a clique, or you can't wear our stuff, or no, this is just for girls, this is just for boys. It's like wear what makes you happy, and that's it, right? So that's kind of the journey and how Unbothered came about.
That's awesome. And I know when we spoke earlier, you had said that you took your time doing your research because you wanted really good quality material. Can you take me on that journey, just how you started? Because I always think, like, when I see a business owner, how did you start? Where do you even start? So if you can take me on that journey and how you found that good quality.
Yeah. So I first started trying to source things locally. Unfortunately, with the price range I had in mind, the materials that I wanted to source were a little bit out of my price range as a cap of what I wanted to sell the clothing at, because I also wanted to fill that gap and like have good quality product at an affordable price. And so I used to work for a jewelry brand and I actually learned how to source and talk to factories through that job. And so one day I just sat there and I was like, what if I just start reaching out to factories directly and see if I can get the quality that I'm looking for? Because I went through many, many trials of failed productions of products that just weren't actually hitting the quality mark that I wanted. And so I finally contacted a factory. I got a couple samples and I was like, this is the quality I'm looking for. You could like, as soon as I opened that packaging, I could feel the thickness of the shirts. They weren't see-through. They did embroidering, which was a big thing for me because all of our logos are embroidered to add to that sustainability factor of like they're not gonna fade out. You can wear the shirt, you can wash it and wash it and wash it and wash it, and the logo's not gonna fade out.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
even my husband, he's super picky with what he buys. He doesn't like things that are too tight. He doesn't like things that are see-through. And he literally put the shirt on and he was like, "This is so nice." He's like, "Where did you get this?" So because I was kind of keeping him in the loop, but like not really. We both kind of do our own thing. So with our businesses. So I was telling him, I was like, "Hey, I'm getting a sample from this factory that I'm talking to, da da da." But like I kind of didn't give him all the ins and outs. And so when he saw them and he tried them on, it was a genuine reaction. He was like, "These are nice. Like I will wear these every day." And that's kind of how I went about getting those materials and that quality. And then it was very important for me to test it out, right? Because the last thing I want is for somebody to buy clothing from Unbothered, wash it once, and then it no longer exists. It disintegrates. It has holes, the whole 9 yards. We've all been there. We've all bought a piece of clothing. Once we wash it, it's gone. And so I just wanted to test it out. So that's what took even longer for me to do my production is that I wanted to wear it and wash it and wear it and wash it and wear it and wash it to see how strong it was. Honestly, I have shirts. All of my shirts I actually wear and have either a sample or a production shirt of. And I've had them for years and they still look brand new. Like I've had this shirt for a long time and it still looks new. And I think it all goes with the attention to detail, even the faded out material. Obviously, with time, if you've had a shirt for 10 plus years, it might fade out, right? You've
Right.
washed it so many times. So that's also why I went with the distress look because then you can get a lot more out of the shirt because it really kind of looks distressed. So everything that I put out has a lot of thought behind it. I never want the brand to feel like a money grab or to feel like a consumerism brand. I want it to feel like the brand you can come to find your clothing, your staple pieces that you're going to wear for a long, long time that are going to become that like loved piece in your wardrobe. And you can wear it at home, you can wear it out, you can wear it for to fancy things, you can wear it to a business meeting, you can wear it to many things because they're so versatile.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that means a lot when you take the time to do your research and find the good quality, right? Because you have the option to just start right away and pick any, like, any factory to do the clothing, but you took your time. And I know you mentioned your husband. Is he also in the fashion industry? I'm sure he's like your number one supporter. Do you have him try on all your samples first before you put it
Yeah.
out there?
Yes, because so right now our biggest size is double XL because we're a smaller company. So when you get into even bigger sizes, you have to buy a lot of bulk items or bulk quantities. And so he's a double XL. So he's my try on for those sizes to make sure they're true to size. And so yeah, he tries on everything. He's not in the fashion industry. He leaves that up to me. He's in the real estate side of things. But he's so into the brand. Everything I bring, he's like, "No, this is spot on. This is exactly what I would look for with on a shirt or the fit that I will like or the thickness that I will like or the color." So he's very much involved. If anybody ever goes to a pop-up I do, he'll be right there with me trying to sell as well. So he's involved, but he's not in the he's not a fashion boy. He's just like, "I'll just be in the background, cheering you on, letting you do your thing." But he does help with the company as
Yeah,
well.
I was gonna say he's your helper. I do that with my
Hmm.
husband too, with like the podcast. Today in the morning, I had him help me record a reel, and I'm like, all right, like
Hmm.
take a 10-minute break so you can help me record this reel. So
Yeah, put them to work sometimes.
we love the supportive hubby.
Yeah.
Tell me the story behind the name, Unbothered, and then it's spelled very differently. So spell it out for us, and then tell me the story behind the name.
Yeah, so we spelled Unbother Unbthrd. So the only vowel in it is the U. And the reason well, first of all, the way I came up with the name, I talked to a very dear friend of mine, and she is also a brand owner. And she was like, just write down the person that you think will be your top client. Write down their description, write down what that person does, what they like, their hobbies, all of that stuff, and then see what is an adjective that describes that person. So
Mm.
to me, that person was somebody who just enjoys fashion, who dresses the way they like. They prioritize their feelings first. They don't let outside pressures or society get to them in life. And so that's kind of how the name Unbothered came about, because I feel like when you start to do you in a sense, you have to be unbothered because you can't let other voices get into your head, right? So, like when you're starting a podcast, when you're starting a business, when you're diving into any new venture, you kind of have to block out outside noise because a lot of people might get in your ear and start telling you, like, hey, why are you doing that? How is that helping you? How is that advancing you, right? So that's how the name came about. And the reason why I did it the way I did it with only leaving the U was because I wanted it to be kind of an inside joke amongst the people who know the brand. There's a few brands that do this, and I feel like it makes them stand out because you're looking at the name, you're like, what does that say? And it has happened to me in pop-ups where people stop by my booth and they're like reading the sign for like a good 3 minutes trying to figure out what it says.
Yes.
It was more of a marketing move. I always liked it when I saw other brands doing it. Bad Bunny did it with Yo Hago Lo Que Me Da La Gana with that album. He only put he didn't put any vowels in it. So, I think it's just a good marketing move. I think it's fun. I think lets people guess, what the name may be. And then the people who do know feel like they're like in a special club because they know what it means.
Yes, yes, I love it. Yeah, it took me a while too. Like when I first found you on social media and then I was like trying to read it and I was like, does she mean to put unbothered? And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm reading it wrong. Until then I think I saw a video where you actually said unbothered and I was like, oh, it is unbothered. I love it. And then, of course, as a Latina business owner, did you ever feel any pressure or did you ever feel like you didn't fit in the fashion world?
Really, I think a big thing I learned growing up from my grandma is to learn how to take space. And
Hmm.
I do that everywhere I go. There should be a space for everybody in every sector of business or entrepreneurship or work, anything you're in. And so I've always kind of walked in with the security of like, this is my place, this is where I belong, and whoever doesn't agree just doesn't need to agree, and that's it. I don't need to really pay attention to those people. I need to pay attention to the people who are behind me and are backing me up. So I've never truly felt rejected or um, kind of in the sidelines for being an Afro Latina business owner. I've had men try to tell me how to run my business, but that's a different thing. Yeah, it's more about being a woman than being Latina. But yeah, no, I've always walked into spaces confident enough, and that's why also I put so much thought behind the product I put out because in my mind, if I'm proud and confident about the product that I'm putting out, I can step into any space with my product. So I always wanted to have something that I'm proud to put out there and not something that's like I'm just putting out there to make a quick buck. So that's just kind of how I feel and I see it whenever I go into any space with a brand.
That's awesome. That's very good advice just to have that confident. That's amazing. And
Fake it till
then
you make it.
yes,
That's my motto. Fake it till you make it. You could be trembling inside. Like I've had so many people come at me and be like, "Oh my God, you're so confident. Like how do I?" And I'm like, "Girl, I'm just faking it. Like trust and believe. I'm shaking in my boots. I'm shooketh. I'm like trying to hide the sweat, but like it's just if you fake it till you make it, eventually that confidence builds up and builds up and builds up, and you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Why was I so scared? And then you continue to do that until you're in a position where you're like, you know what? I deserve to be here as much as the next person. So why should I be afraid to be here?
yeah, that's true. I know in the business side, because full time I'm a tax accountant. And I asked that question because I remember when I first started my career, fresh out of college, my first job, I landed a job at Ernst and Young. And to those business and a tax accountant, it's a pretty well known company. And I remember my first day, I just felt so intimidated. One, because I was the only Latina in the room, and two, I was probably the only woman in the room. I'm pretty sure there were others, but it was dominated more by men. So, I was like so intimidated. And I remember looking around and just telling myself, like, oh my God, I felt like I didn't belong there. So, to hear the confidence that you have, but then you're in the back of your mind, you're like, I'm nervous too, but I'm just not going to show it. So that's pretty awesome. And
I
then
think it comes from growing up with really big personalities around me. I just had to. I had to, put myself out there, and I just continue to do it throughout my adulthood.
yeah, did you have anyone in your family that kind of inspired you and motivated you to follow your dreams? Because you always have that one person that kind of just like gives you that extra push. Who do you have in your life that's like that?
Yes, I would say most of my family has been pretty supportive. I mean, my sisters buy my brand all the time. My in-laws buy my brand all the time. My mom, everybody is super supportive. My grandparents, they love the quality. They put it on. They're like, "Oh my God, this fits like a glove. I love it." So I would say everybody has been very supportive. You always have those like hesitant family members that are like, hey, are you sure? Is this something you want to put your money into? Do you know what you're doing? Whatever.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I feel like everybody has kind of had my back because they've seen me diving into this so full heartedly that they're just like, okay, well, we're just going to stand behind her and see what happens.
Good for you, because sometimes in the Latino community, you have like, especially for my parents, like education to them was like number one. Like that was their number one priority. And it wasn't just any career that they wanted me and my brother to kind of pursue. It had to be like a business, a lawyer, a doctor. It was always like these top careers. So coming to them and saying like, "Oh mom, I want to be like a fashion designer." I can just hear her voice. She'll support me. Like I'm sure the support would be there, but like they always have like the comment like, "Oh, is that going to make you enough money?"
Yeah.
Hear that your family is like your number one cheerleader, like that's a big plus, because sometimes you don't have.
Yeah, I would say I did get some kickback for one of my uncles for the name. He was like, "How are people gonna understand that? I don't like that marketing strategy." And he is actually in marketing, but I think it's just a cultural difference. Like I've seen it here. I've seen brands do it and make it work and be very successful. So I think it's just at that point, it's just a difference in cultures and a difference in living in different countries and seeing how things run in different countries. Other than that, I mean, after the hesitation comments, I was just like, listen, I'm gonna do what I need to do. So either you're with me or you don't have to be a part of it. But everybody kind of got on the same page and we just all moved forward.
That's awesome. And then when you moved to California, or even when you got to New York, was there like a cultural shock coming from the Dominican Republic?
So in New York, I will say definitely. I don't think I was mature enough to realize how much of a cultural shock it was for me. I think as I gotten older, I'm like processing things and I'm like, oh yeah, 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 that was kind of a trauma moment
Yeah.
there. But I don't think I was really looking at it that way because, again, my grandparents did a very good job in mentally preparing me for the fact that I was going to have to do this move eventually in life. So it wasn't so much of a shock of like, oh my God, I'm leaving my entire life behind. It was like, you're going to have to do this eventually. I think the biggest shock was the cold and the snow. I did fall in the snow a few times. And then in California is a completely different beast. California is so different from New York and Florida. So when, funny enough, I came here for about 24 hours because my husband was here because of some family matters. Him and my sister-in-law took me around and showed me a little bit of LA, and I fell in love. I was like, this is it. It was more of an energy thing. I like stepped out of the airport and I was like, I like it here. Like I didn't even see anything. And it's funny because my husband was like, no, we need to go back and visit, whatever. And we came back, we visited, and I was like, nope, still love it. I still want to move there. And so eventually I convinced him to move back to California. I think California reminds me of the Dominican Republic in a lot of ways. People are more out and about. Yeah, people are always like walking around. Where I live, it's very walkable. So like people are always walking around. The old neighborhood that I lived in, it was a lot of Latinos. I knew all my neighbors. We would say hi. They wouldn't see me because I was out of town. They were like, "Where have you been? I haven't seen you." Whatever. So like I felt like it was a lot more friendlier and a lot more of a community than New York can be. And so I really, really liked it over here. So I'm glad that I ended up here
That's awesome. And you're in LA.
in LA. Yeah,
Awesome. I've never been. I have to go visit. It's on my list to visit.
you should. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And then what advice would you give like a Latina that wants to start her business? What advice would you give her?
I would say to lean into what makes you different. So sometimes I feel as Latinas or as Afro Latinas, we want to fit in another person's box to kind of make our way into a certain industry. And I think that's to our detriment. I think what makes us special is where we come from and our heritage. And so I would say just lean very heavily into that. Lean very heavily into what your brand is and who you are as a person. Because I would say the most important thing about owning a business is to be authentic. Because you can only keep a facade up for so long. So if you're not putting yourself out as you are very authentically, it's just in the long term, it's not gonna work because you're gonna burn yourself out. You're gonna fall out of that character and then your whole business could crumble, right? And then I would say to whatever you're thinking, just start. Just take the first step. That's the hardest part. Yes, trials and tribulations will come, things will happen. It has happened to me time and time and time again. But I take those as learning curves, right? We're all learning how to do this. We're not born experts at life. And so I would just say, just get started. You're never going to be ready. You're never going to have everything you need.
Yeah.
Just take that first step. Mine was to form my LLC. That was my first step. Once I formed my LLC, I was like, well, now I have to do it because it's already out there. I already started a business. So I would just say, take that first step and be authentically you and not try to put yourself into somebody else's box.
Hmm, that's good. I've heard that so much. I often like to ask this question just to get everyone's different perspective. And the number one like answer that I always get is that just start. And that was like one of the things that I kept telling myself with the podcast, right? Because we either have imposter syndrome or we just delay it for like the silliest thing. Like for me, I wanted everything perfect. Like I wanted the right setup, the right lighting, the right mic. And until I had everything, I was like, I'm not going to start. I'm not going to start until I have everything. And then finally, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to have everything and I'm not going to have the perfect setup, but I'm going to keep learning as I go. So it's funny that you say that because every time I ask that question, that's always like the number one answer. Like, just start. Like, you're not going to have everything, but you're going to figure it out along the way. And like you said, start with one thing. Like, for you, it was the LLC, right? And after that, it was like, all right, well, I kind of have to keep going because the LLC is formed. For me, it was the Instagram. Like, I opened up the Instagram and I was like, well, all right, I'm already in it. I started the Instagram and then I got like a few followers. So it's like, all right, now I really have to follow through. So yeah, that's funny that you say
I
that.
think if you think about it, some of the biggest companies just started. So Amazon was started in a garage. Apple was started in a garage. Facebook was started in a dorm. So if you think of those people, if they wouldn't have taken that first step to do this product or this company or whatever, when people were telling them that they're crazy for putting something like that out there, none of these companies would be out there. Now these are multi-billion dollar companies.
Yeah.
So it's just take I think the first step is the hardest, not to get it confused with the things that are gonna come along. But I think that we psych ourselves out the first step. like you said, I need to have the right lighting, I need to have the right microphone, I need to have a space, I need to, those are all things you can always build on because those are always going to be available. But what if you record a first episode and you're like, you know what, this is not for me. And now you bought all these things,
Yes.
right? That you're not going to use, right? And
Yeah.
so I just say, just do the first step, whether it's that is sending an email, buying, forming your company, buying just a microphone to record, starting the Instagram, just do it because that's going to be the hardest thing.
Yes. What are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced in your company?
Oof. A few. I would say, honestly, the biggest challenges have been out of my control. I just take them as learning curves and move on. So for some reason, if I order anything for like fall winter season, I now know that I have to order at the beginning of June because it always gets backed up or lost. I did have a whole shipment go missing. And it's fine because everything's insured, but it was very stressful
Okay,
because
I
it
was gonna
delayed it.
say, oh my
It
God.
delayed it like a month and a half. So I didn't have the things for like a month and a half. And so I would say, yeah, those have been the bigger challenges I've faced with the company, just production things. But that just comes with the business. It's just is what it is.
Yes. And then with social media, like we all know, it can be used for good and for bad. So I know you guys have, your social media platform. If you have ever received like a negative feedback, how do you handle that? Or a
So I
negative comment,
actually
I should say, a negative comment, like, on your platform. How do you handle that?
I got a few. I think I did a TikTok that went a little viral, and I put the word inclusive, and a lot of people felt offended because I don't go above double 2XL or below small. And they were like, "You're not truly inclusive. You're just clickbaiting. This is false advertising." Like, I got a slew of comments. And to me, inclusive, the way I used it, it was more like everybody's welcome to wear the brand. Like, it's not a brand for boys or for girls. Like, everybody is welcome. And I just kind of took it as it was, you know. I mean, that's something that I'm striving for is to obviously build up the sizing and the brand, but unfortunately, it's just a capital thing. So it's out of my hands again. And there's nothing I can do about it. I don't have the space or capital to build it to that particular size range. And so I was honest. I just told people, I'm like, hey, we're striving to do this, but we're a small business. And some of them received them and some of them didn't. And it's just this what it is. I just feel like when it comes to social media, it's kind of like how when you throw a party or a wedding or something, you could do
Yeah.
the most exquisite menu, decorations. Somebody's always going to have something bad to say.
Yes.
It's just what it is.
Yeah. No, that is
So
true.
I think the hardest part is not reacting because, again, this is something very dear to me. It's my baby. And so when somebody's attacking it, I'm just like, no, 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 you got it all wrong. Why are you attacking my business? But it's like, you kind of have to put yourself outside of the business owner's shoes and put yourself in that person's shoes and why they're leaving the comment that they're leaving. So I try my best to either not reply if it's a really nasty comment, or if I am replying, then just to keep it as cordial as possible. Because at the end of the day, I want Unbothered to be a place where people can speak their mind. That's valid, and also feel protected in a way and not feel like the entire world is going to come after them because they left this comment. And I feel like it starts with me. If I'm replying in a way where, like, hey, I totally see you, I hear you, we apologize for maybe using this term wrong, but this is why we don't have more sizes. Then that's all I can do. And then people will see that and be like, okay, well, if that's how they're responding, that's how they're responding. So there's no bad blood, there's no beef, there's nothing going on, we can all keep moving along.
Yes. I know our platforms are different. I for myself personally, I try not to read the comments because it'll affect my mental health. So I try sometimes not to look at it. But what I found is that, some of the comments are very positive. And then if I see something negative, I just don't even finish reading it. I just like skip through because I'm like, it affects my mental health. That's why I asked you because I'm like, these comments, certain things, like you said, are out of your control, and if you're not in the right headspace, it can really, really affect your day. So, social media, it's like a double edged sword, right? Sometimes it's used for good. Sometimes, you have these people that just, are just trolling.
Yeah, the way I look at the trolls and just anybody in life, to be honest with you in general, is that if it's not paying my bills, I
Yes.
don't really care. Like, you're having a bad day, go ahead, have at it. It's just a comment. I truly, again, I've been blessed to not be like swarmed with like negative comments
Right.
per se, but I just honestly, I'm just like, if you're not paying my bills, if anything, you're boosting my video because you're leaving a comment, whether it's good or bad, it's still boosting the video. So thank you.
I love it. You're just dropping so much gold for us. Very wise. And
Thank
then
you.
going forward, I know, the year's almost ending, but in, the following year, 2025. So any new projects coming up?
Yeah, so far I'm trying to figure out what the next product we want to release is. I think this year we released a product that I felt needed to be in the brand, which was the XL tote. And then we did our Hispanic Heritage Month launch, which I've been wanting to do for a few years. So I think that next year I'm trying to see what's a product that the brand is missing that we could bring in. But I think I'm focusing more on like expanding the brand audience and trying to reach more people and maybe traveling to different states to like show off the brand in that sense than adding more product to the brand.
Awesome. And then where can we find you? If you can just shout out all your social media platforms, your website, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so we have Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and Threads. So Instagram and Threads were Unbothered Fashion, and that's Unbthrd Fashion. And on TikTok, it's Unbothered SH for Fashion House because the full name of the company is Unbothered Fashion House. And then on Pinterest, I believe we're just Unbothered Fashion as well. So you can find us on all the platforms and keep an eye out because you never know when we'll have something special going on or a giveaway or something like that.
Yes. And I know as soon as you go on your website, you can put your email just so you can be
Yes.
subscribed to emails and then get all the details and all the, promotions and everything that's coming out.
Yeah, and if we're ever doing a restock or a new drop or anything or a sale, email and text are the first to know before we put it out in all of our socials.
Awesome. And I know today you gave us so much advice and so much wisdom, but to end it, if you can just leave us with a few beautiful words of advice.
Yeah, I would say you're enough. You are more than capable to do what you're trying to do. Don't let the imposter syndrome get to your head because the struggle is real when it
Yes.
does. And just move forward. Move forward in life. I say everything is a decision. So sometimes we like to look at things like this is going to be dire. If I decide to do this, it's going to end my life. And it's not really. You make a decision, you might have to readjust and make a different decision, right? So I heard this on a podcast one time, and the person said, everything is a decision. If you made a bad one, then just make a good one the next time. And
Mm,
that's kind of how I like to look at it. Just it's just a decision. Just make it and move forward.
that's awesome. So, thank you so much for joining us. And we just loved hearing your journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I love the podcast. You're super sweet, and I can't wait to see what you could do with your podcast.
Thank you. And to my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Flawless Purpose. Bye.